Alright, what's up, y'all? Happy Monday, and for those of you that actually celebrate, I guess happy President's Day, especially nowadays, but we're not going to go into any of that because who really cares? But anyway, I'm sure obviously there are those of us that do, and again, I don't talk about politics here, and we're not going to start now. In fact, we are actually finally getting into an NBA, a basketball focused video finally. And it's been a hot minute since I've been good to do that, especially because, recently we've been still pretty deep into football. Just had the Super Bowl a little over a week ago. Still loving the outcome of that right now. But we just actually came out of All-Star Weekend as we are entering the stretch of the NBA season. And we definitely got to talk about it. We're actually going to start here with one Mr. Draymond Green. And this man has some really, really interesting things to say yesterday evening, last night, and just pretty much seemingly throughout. But I gotta say, one thing I find really, really interesting is they talked about the state of the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, San Francisco, the Chase Center, was the home of the 2025 All-Star Weekend. And, of course, Draymond not playing in the game, obviously he's been making some appearances with TNT Sports a lot over recent years, pretty much for as long as I can remember. But just the things that he said pertaining to the Warriors were really, really interesting. And he went as far as saying, I think we can win a championship. And of course, I think it was either Jalen Rose or Vince Carter that was on a panel with him and Adam Lefkoe that was like, could you say that again? And he ended up going to, oh, I'm sorry, I said I think we can win the championship. I lied. We will win the championship. And pretty much in those exact words. I'm not going to go as far as saying that I actually agree with Draymond, but I do believe that it is true. I don't think it's going to be true this season, but I do feel with the direction that the Warriors are going, bringing in a Jimmy Butler, I understand he's 30 plus, but still effective as hell. And with a guy like Curry, also 30 plus, still insanely effective as hell. I mean, I just got to imagine as they continue to add the necessary pieces, particularly some bigs that can actually fit into their system, I don't see a scenario where you're going to beat the Warriors very, very easily. I don't care if you're the Celtics, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Cavaliers, whoever the top teams right now are, even the Rockets for that matter. You still got to look out for the Warriors at some point. And adding Jimmy Butler just really, really adds to that. I mean, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to them very closely. Would have been a bit more interesting if he'd have wound up going to LA, but I guess now that really wouldn't be a fit, especially given that they added Luka. But yeah, I'm just basically saying keep your eyes on the Warriors. They're apparently not done winning championships yet, but that remains to be seen. We'll find out with time. There's a lot more I want to talk about as far as what Draymond said here in this video, but we're going to move along from that. We're actually going to talk a little bit about LeBron James. This, to me, I find absolutely hilarious, and again, watch towards the end of this video now, because there are some things that I'm going to say. I'm going to compound on a lot of what I'm talking about here in these early topics, but he actually waited until I think it was late Saturday or sometime during the day on Sunday to declare he wasn't going to be taking part in the actual All-Star competition. I can't really call it a game because of the format. Again, we're going to talk about that here very shortly. But to me, this is where it's really, really tricky for me. I have an awful lot of respect for LeBron James. I actually like him personally. Don't know the guy, obviously, but just given some of the things that we've seen and heard from him and just the way that he's presented himself, obviously he's not a bad guy. But at the same time, it's just really, really wild that he waited as long as he did to declare that he wasn't going to play in the game on his 40th, or having turned 40, by the way. I don't know why I was saying on his 40th birthday, but having turned 40, by the way, which, again, there's a reason I'm bringing that up. But, I say this because for literally the entirety of his career, he's been the standard bearer as far as professionalism, how to conduct yourself, like all sorts that you want to talk about as far as if you could build the perfect NBA player, he does actually, I guess what I'm looking for is exhibit a lot of those qualities. He's very, very strong in those. However, it's just hard for me to believe that we're talking about this like this because, he's actually been one of the few players, one of the very, very few superstars in the league that will give his best at going all 82 games. He doesn't necessarily do it, but he's the closest we've seen to that in a really, really long time, which I find very, very shameful. Again, a lot of stuff I want to say here, but to me, this is kind of where, as I talk about what I'm going to say at the end of this video here, we got to really, really take into consideration the example that's being set here as far as what LeBron decided to do over the weekend and how he went about it. And even Stephen A. Smith talked about it this morning on First Take. You think about things like the decision when he first, of course, as we all remember, take his talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat, and how all of that went, especially initially. Sure, he wound up winning championships after that, but I mean, come on now. Come on now. And I'll just leave it at that for the moment as we'll move on to the main topic. Not the last topic, but the main topic. We got to talk about All-Star Weekend in and of itself. And, of course, I want to talk about Kevin Hart and the TNT guys in tow. But this is where I got to bring up some of the things Draymond was saying in the pre-show leading up to the competition broadcast. And, of course, I'm paraphrasing this time here, but he talked about how with the way things went with last year's All-Star game, and of course the ratings and everything pertaining to that, and of course this year hasn't necessarily been a stellar year for the NBA overall in terms of the public perspective, but even with all that in mind, it's just funny because what Draymond has to say about that doesn't help either. Of course, based on all of this, we got to bring in the rising stars of the competition. I kind of agree with where he's coming from on that. I don't have an entire problem with it because, let's face it, when we're thinking about the rising stars, we're looking at all stars to be here. That's that part. Now, we're going to get to the heart of why I'm talking about this particular topic right now. And I've mentioned this before. If you go back, I've talked about this in previous videos. This is the final season of the NBA being covered on Turner Broadcasting, specifically TNT. And to me, to see this is what we're getting as the last All-Star Weekend on TNT, and I say this because over especially the recent years, as long as, All-Star coverage has been exclusive to TNT, or to Turner rather, I feel like I've come away with nothing but an awful lot of fond memories. Some much better than others, others not so much. But to know that this is the way that this is ending with this company, it's really, really disappointing. I'm already saddened by the fact that the run with Turner is coming to an end. But it's been said, and as cliche as it may be, it's just real as fuck. All good things do come to an end. And while I look forward to the shift to Amazon and NBC, especially since they'll be bringing back the old music, or at least I'm hoping they will, I don't know, I feel like this went out on a whimper. Shout out to Kevin Hart, by the way, because he put over the TNT guys heavy, on this final run, because I think it just needs to be said, it just is something that I feel like many of us, myself especially right now, have just enjoyed what we've gotten from EJ, Shaq, Charles, and Kenny over the years. I mean, Shaq, of course, joining in more recent years after retiring. It's actually been about a decade or so now, so it's not all that old. But either way, of course, Kenny referenced it, we'll be seeing that crew around. It just won't be with Turner, and it won't be with the All-Star game. But all that being said, I just feel like everything as far as the competition itself looked good. I felt like it could have been a lot better. It could have been a fuck of a lot better, but, you know, I'll leave that up to y'all to talk about how y'all feel about that. For now, I'm just going to close this out by saying Happy Goat Day, y'all. Of course, this is the 62nd birthday of the one, the only GOAT in Michael Jordan. And this is where I wanted to talk about LeBron a little bit more here because, of course, if you follow closely enough, especially on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, um, Stephon Marbury actually has a really, really interesting quote, and it goes as follows. How are you going to say that you're better than Michael Jordan when you can't shoot? You can't even make a free throw. You can't even teach kids how to play basketball and shoot. Again, that's Stephon Marbury. Now, feel what you will about Marbury for whatever reasons you may have, because, you know, he's probably brought a little controversy onto himself here and there, but I don't know any other way to look at it at this point. I think the GOAT discussion has obviously been buried. There are still those that cling to LeBron being the GOAT, but again, the situation with him pulling himself out of the All-Star game pretty much last minute really buries that conversation. And if you think it doesn't, then I'm sorry, you're just delusional as fuck. I can't look at that any other way. Now, I'm going a bit longer in this than I wanted to, but I have to say all this because we gotta look at the bigger picture. These are things that MJ would never fucking do. Ever. Okay? So, I just want to say this, again, Happy GOAT Day, y'all, but understand who really holds the mantle on that. Now, and at least until Wemby actually winds up really having his way with the league at some point. But anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. Y'all know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think down below. And of course, there's an awful lot more that I want to talk about here. Not even so much with just basketball, but just really a lot of things. I guess we'll just save that for another time. So y'all know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think down below. And of course, this has been your time with A&J, and I appreciate y'all spending it with me.